Hello, I'm Chris Palmer. I work at La Trobe University in Melbourne and talk to you about the film of Lord of the Flies and, of course, the novel that's in the background, William Golding's Lord of the Flies. I'll talk to you a little bit about Peter Brook, where he came from, his impact on English culture in the 50s and 60s. Talk quite a lot about the Castaway novel, the Castaway story, one of the elementary stories in Western story making. Really concentrating on Robinson Crusoe by Defoe and what happened after that, and then what Golding did to it, did to the Castaway story. Tell you a little bit about the allegorical interpretations of our movie and novel, the way not only the people but some of the things you see stand for larger meanings and make a larger pattern, really revolving around the killing of Simon, the vital moment, especially in the movie. Talk a tiny bit also about the aftermath. It's still going on. Lost hasn't even finished as I speak, has it? Another Castaway story. Peter Brook first. He made his name as a theatre and opera director. He started as a boy wonder. He's ended up now as a guru with his own base in Paris. He directed Shakespeare at Stratford when he was 21. In his early years, he was versatile. He did musical comedy. He did romantic Shakespearean comedy. But he was increasingly drawn to violence and inexorable degeneration into savagery, so you can see where our movie comes in, as it's turning towards violence after the placid early stills of traditional, decorous English schoolboy life. Brook's first spectacular success was a production of Shakespeare's brutal tragedy, Titus Andronicus, the year after, in fact, Golding's Lord of the Flies came out. The critics and scholars had mostly seen Titus Andronicus as a bad play, and it's got some bad lines in it. The theatrical directors had almost entirely ignored it. It's got a high casualty rate, it's got rape, it's got cannibalism. Atrocity. Brook's production, however, was a triumph. There were faintings every night among the audience members. It toured Europe to great acclaim. It was later revived for another run. As his career developed, Brook went through a number of phases, but the one we're dealing with, from the film of The Lord of the Flies, and a while after that, he was increasingly drawn to the so-called theatre of cruelty. The theories of the mad French playwright Antonin Artaud, in fact, crystallised Brook's own discontent with wordy, safe, genteel, traditional English theatre, and with the life that was behind it, the life that we're going to see in the opening frames on the island. Keep your shirt tucked in and your socks pulled up. Do your Latin, as we saw a little glimpse of a Latin lesson earlier on. He shared that discontent with famous so-called angry young men among writers of his time. In the theatre, Osborne, Arden, Whiting, and of course they were part of a general revolt against gentility and niceness and the stiff upper lip, revolt that became the sex, drugs, rock and roll of the 60s. Now, part of the context for all this is the bitterness of England's loss of empire from the 40s to the 60s. Disillusionment and bitterness on all sides about that process.
Hey! Ouch! Hey, wait for me! I can't hardly move with all these creeper things.
What we see on screen is the castaways as they arrive, fully dressed in their neat English schoolboy uniforms and small in the bush, because Brook can convey that smallness of the kids with his long shots. Back to Artaud and Brook. Artaud wanted actions more than words. He wanted blazing, frightening, shocking events on stage. And when Brook made Lord of the Flies, he'd embraced shock and violence. He didn't want anything classical or intellectual.
And I've been wearing specs.
You can see how a story about a group of innocent, well-brought-up schoolboys who end up killing and hunting, masked and chanting, appealed to Brook at this stage of his career. He'd go on to stage a famous, grim, cold production of Shakespeare's King Lear, underlining all the violence and degeneration in that play and leaving out a good deal of the kindness that's also there. And then make a film after our film, 1971. Both times in the theatre and on screen with Paul Schofield as a slow, rumbling, tyrannical Lear, ending with a slow, desolate death on a wide, flat plain. Is in fact a little bit of a resemblance between the way Lear dies in the last frames of Brook's later movie and the way Ralph is going to face death scrambling across this beach we're seeing in Peace now, early on. Just as there's a resemblance, even stronger one, between the images of Jack as a masked tyrant in a stony cave, the height of his power in this movie, and Lear at the beginning of the Lear movie on his stony throne giving his orders. Lord of the Flies, of course, is a lot more quick and vigorous than Brook's film of Lear. Brook does respond to different qualities in the texts he starts from. He doesn't simply change them into his own image and vision. In fact, he's sticking very close to Golding's novel in the movie. Lots of the dialogue, lots of the incidents are exactly as in the novel. Here we get a little contrast on screen between Piggy struggling with his sock, uncomfortable at even taking his socks off, and Ralph happy to swim. This is the early, idyllic phase of the movie when, as Golding puts it, you can feel the enchantment of the island a little. It's not going to last long. So much anyway, briefly, on Brook and his place in history. Practising theatre of cruelty, taking part in his own version of the revolt of the angry young men of the 50s, and later against gentility and niceness, against treating famous plays as safe classics. The discovery of the conch here that's going to be the signal for the assembly, the boys, the Fays, in which they try to be democratic, and the first of the symbols that pattern the movie as they did the novel. Another one soon will be Jack and his knife, which Brook has brought out a lot more than in the novel. What of William Golding now, whose Lord of the Flies made such a shocking splash when he finally got it published after many rejections and eventually was to winning the Nobel Prize for Literature. We can see his place in history on a longer view this time if we view Lord of the Flies as a castaway story. In this kind of story, one or a few Westerners are wrecked on a desert island and have to make do, surviving various threats. Castaway is usually male. The island's very often in the Pacific. Both these things are true of our novel and film, although how the boys got to be flying over the Pacific, as we saw in that glimpse of a map, being evacuated from England, is not entirely clear. And in fact, that pelican we saw diving is an Atlantic pelican because the movie was made in Puerto Rico, in the Caribbean. But never mind that, this tradition, the castaway novel, is long and varied. Stretching from Homer's Odyssey, Odysseus has several spells on islands, through to the TV series Lost, and no doubt after that finally ends, there'll be more. Choir here singing Kyrie eleison from the Mass, a few Greek phrases from the Mass, which means Lord have mercy. Grim with increasing irony, it'll turn up again at a violent moment later in the movie. and we'll see Jack, now neatly clothed, as the masked, painted tyrant and leader of the savagery.
We're having a meeting. Come and join us.
Castaway stories. There are novels, there are poems, plays, later films and TV series. Maybe as many as 40 film and TV versions of Robinson Crusoe. Some straight renditions, some critical of the colonialism of the story, at least one pornographic. Lots of variations, lots of continuities. We see Simon has just fainted, and he's going to be a character that Brook brings out even more than does Golding. I was talking of variations and continuities. Beasts or beastly behaviour, for instance. Circe turns Odysseus' sailors on one of the islands into beasts, including, interestingly, pigs. In Shakespeare's The Tempest, the island originally belonged to Caliban, seen as a monster, although later viewers have been more sympathetic, called by Prospero, the ruler of the island, this thing of darkness, and given a name that sounds rather like a cannibal.
Bill. Roger.
And so it goes on. We'll see what Golding and then Brook do with beasts, or more important,
Simon.
beastly behaviour on an island.
Then that boy there, You're talking too much. Shut up, Fatty. His name's not Fatty. His real name's
But the key
Piggy.
texts
Piggy.
are two novels. Robinson Crusoe, Daniel Defoe, 1719, and The Island of Dr. Moreau, H.G. Wells, 1896. The context is increasingly Western imperialism, settlement, conquest, what the English were particularly bitter and divided about in the 1950s and 60s.
I ought to be chief.
Here we have on screen
Chief chorister and head boy.
Jack and Ralph side by side, standing, competing for leadership.
All right, we'll have a vote.
Ralph will win this one.
The chief then.
Later we'll see Jack, the taller, usually standing, and the more thoughtful Ralph, sitting and thinking. Little image of the different personalities and really the different politics of the two chief boys. Robinson Crusoe, the story of Robinson's 28-year sojourn on the island, the first 20 or so alone, is a story about diligent, practical work, making do, developing the island, learning how to bake bread, domesticating goats, improvising a calendar, making a fort, several forts indeed, and of course, Jack and his tribe make a fort in this story. Robinson has a few moments of depression, but not many given his extraordinary years of solitude. Towards the end, famously, he rescues a native whom he names Friday, fights off savages, killing lots of them, fights off intruding mutineers, killing lots of them again. So the story in Robinson Crusoe does come to violence. But most of it's about work, improvising, making do in a practical, rational fashion. And that's the part that makes it popular and hugely often imitated. As time goes on, Castaway story becomes an adventure story. Even if you get savages or pirates in the later versions, there is more as adventure incidents. And the Castaway story becomes a children's story, as Lord of the Flies, of course, is. But in that earlier phase, a children's story because it's good to educate the kids, give them plenty of names of tropical plants and animals, perhaps, or give them the value of hard, practical work, or just for fun. Lots of swimming, the huts like kids' cubbies, the animals like pets. As the story expands, the solitary castaway becomes a family, the Swiss family Robinson in 1812, or a group of American blokes, Jules Verne's The Mysterious Island, 1876, or a trio of young friends, Jack, Ralph and Peterkin, in R.M. Ballantyne's The Coral Island, 1857, of which more in a moment. This is all pleasant enough. Kids' books, books to educate, children, books for fun, but it's becoming exactly the sort of amiable, pleasant, nice writing that Brook revolts against. As for Golding, he probably never wrote a nice or pleasant line in his long career as a novelist. So is it Lord of the Flies then, which breaks with the genteel castaway novel, returns it to adult seriousness, gives us a little bit of the adventure, the fun, the kids exploring, the three kids exploring as they are here, just playing, as we'll see sequences of kids play later on, and then turns it back to serious violence, where the falling rock becomes that monstrous boulder that's launched on poor Piggy towards the end. Is it Lord of the Flies that does this to the genteel adventure story? Not quite. Wells's The Island of Dr. Moreau is what darkens the scene and reintroduces the beastly. Moreau himself, in Wells's story, is no castaway. He's settled on his island to perform hideous experiments on animals, trying by means of grafting and vivisection to change them into humans. He thinks he can make humans out of animals. Castaway in that story is the innocent Prendick who narrates the story for us and who ends up on the island. Has to witness Moreau's brutality, the deaths or the killings of Moreau and his offsider, Montgomery. Moreau fails in his insane project. The beastmen degenerate into violence and something like cannibalism. Moreau dies, as I said. Prendick is left, the only human on the island, endures time as a solitary Robinson Crusoe castaway, and he's hardly sane when rescued. You see a good glimpse of an innocent-looking pig and Ralph and his knife. Later on, when they slaughter the pigs, the boys, the tribesmen, in a frenzy, we won't actually see the pig, till it's been killed. We just see the boys at their nasty work. And here we have a fairly obvious confrontation, one of several, between Simon, the kindest and most innocent of the boys, and Ralph. It's no accident that when Wells's novel was published in the 1890s, it was a time of imperialism's maximum power, but a time also of doubt and opposition to it. Does the white man civilise the tropics and the people who live there, or exploit those people and oppress them? Does he keep a stiff upper lip, fully dressed and self-controlled? Does he keep his clothes on? You can see here the clothes are starting to get a little ripped already. Whether you keep your clothes on or strip them off is an important marker in our film. Does he keep the stiff upper lip, or does he degenerate? Think of Conrad's Heart of Darkness. In 1900 it was published. The mysterious Kurtz murders and exploits as a colonialist. Then he takes to cannibalism and having himself worshipped. This is not actually very far from what Jack does and becomes in our movie. Cannibalism, not quite, but really look later on at the images of the boys tearing voraciously at the pig meat.
Who knows we're here?
In the 1890s, were also a time of anxiety about the theories of Charles Darwin. If we evolve from animals, perhaps we can devolve and degenerate back into animals. Perhaps we are by no means godlike, as the humanist ideal had said. Moreau set himself up as a kind of god. He taught prayers and chants to his beastmen. There are plenty of chants and sacrifices to propitiations of a beast god in Lord of the Flies. But the beast, as Simon will suggest, is surely in the boys, not up the top of the mountain. Just as in these earlier stories, it is Kurtz, or Moreau,
Now he says
arguably,
a beastie.
who is the god and monster in Heart of Darkness,
A snake.
the island of Dr. Moreau,
Ever so big.
evil,
Saw it.
failed gods. You can see
When he was hiding
Golding,
in the jungle in the dark.
intuitively, or from his reading, draws on moments
When the
and
rain
themes in
stopped,
these earlier stories.
turned
He
his
does
mother
that
and things like
because many of the
goats in
same
trees.
doubts and uneases about
He says,
humans,
"Will you come back
Westerners in the
tonight?"
tropics, and about the possibility of devolution are strongly in his mind
But there
from his
isn't
own
a
life experience and what's happened in history since then.
Ralph's right, of course. There isn't a snake thing. But if there was, we'd hunt and kill it.
Now, this worry that humans, Western males in particular,
So we must make
might degenerate to the level that animals or so-called savages have been thought to live on, or a lot worse, was not calmed as the 20th century unfolded with the slaughter of 2 world wars, the extermination camps, the atom bomb, shadow of the atom bomb earlier on in the stills at the beginning of our movie. Perhaps even now, the reams of writing on the subject of many films too, no one can really say they understand how it was that many Germans took part in the huge machine of extermination of the Jews, dehumanising them first, children included, in dozens of ways, then despising and mistreating and killing them as if they were not human. Turning them into imaginary beasts, if you like, and killing them, which is what happens to Simon. Moment by moment in the film we'll see small, boyish confrontations between Simon and Ralph, or Piggy and Ralph, starting out as schoolboy aggro, a little bit of bullying, a little bit of disagreement, and gradually gathering a nastier power. Well, Golding fought in the Second World War. He was a naval officer during that war. Brook, of course, came of age in it. He was only 20 in 1945. Now it's Golding, for his first novel, who returns to the castaway story, already pulled away from its place in innocent children's literature and adventure fiction by H.G. Wells, who returns to the problem of the beast on the island or in the humans, in the castaways. Again tells a story of descent into violence, chanting, frenzy, killing. His novel doesn't mention Dr. Moreau, however. His point of reference for his readers is the children's adventure novel, such as Treasure Island or The Coral Island. The naval officer who arrives at the very end of our story mentions the Coral Island. In those allusions, Golding is underlining how very different his story and his boys are, though Jack and Ralph have the same names as 2 of the 3 boys in Valentine's novel. The boys in Valentine's are only a little older than the boys in this story. Brook doesn't feel the need of this allusion and he leaves it out of the film. Golding will in fact write another castaway novel in 1957, a short novel, Pincher Martin. In Pincher Martin we watch a shipwrecked seaman, his destroyer has been sunk by a German submarine, struggle to survive on a barren Atlantic rock. He seems to succeed, being a tough character. He improvises, he makes do. But there's a twist and a revelation at the end. And again the emphasis is on the inner darkness of the castaway. We learn from flashbacks that he's a rapist, in fact. And we have the kids playing in a variety of ways, and Brook improvises a fascinating sequence now with Simon, one of the key characters, especially for Brook's movie. Simon playing with his gecko. Now Brook will make more films exploring a possible core of violence and selfishness in humans, notably Marat Sard in 1967, a film set in a lunatic asylum, and King Lear, as I mentioned, in 1971. Nor is our film by any means the end of the Castaway narrative. It tends to haunt us. New generations, new attitudes want to revisit, vary the story. I've already mentioned Lost, which has its fans. There's the excellent film Castaway with Tom Hanks, directed by Robert Zemeckis in 2000, which is a return to Defoe's story of the strong practical castaway making do on his island. But even there, when the story has the Tom Hanks figure rescued, return home and find sadly that his wife has thought he was dead and married someone else, the movie is revisiting Enoch Arden, a sad castaway story and poem by Tennyson in the mid-19th century. Later on with castaway novels, there's J.M. Coetzee's novel Foe, based on Defoe, of course, 1986. It gives us a woman castaway, the feisty and attractive Susan, and re-explores the fate and personality of Friday. And this is a much less grim novel than many of Coetzee's. Two novels which take the island out of the Pacific and back home to Britain to emphasise that it's the English that we're really thinking about. J.G. Ballard's Concrete Island, 1973, in which the island is in fact a patch of barren ground cut off by a sea of fierce freeway traffic, and Ian Banks's The Wasp Factory in 1984, a gruesomely funny novel about a young psychopath on an island off the coast of Scotland. There's even a very good children's novel drawing on Robinson Crusoe and on Moreau. This is Anne Hallam's Dr. Franklin's Island of 2001. Anne Hallam, the pseudonym of Gwyneth Jones. There's even a later film version of Lord of the Flies, directed by Harry Hook in 1990, in which the boys are from the US. And there are various other changes made, especially to the figure of the downed pilot who will become the mysterious beast, or imagined beast, in our movie. But enough. Back to our more famous film. The film, as you possibly know, was made on a shoestring. Brook poured all his money into the film stock and the huge length of footage they actually shot. It took them a year to edit. And the boys lived in Spartan conditions, which they've recounted in a gripping later documentary. The boys were the children of expatriate English people from especially the United States, gathered randomly, boy actors with no experience and in some cases changed by what they had to act. The boy who played Piggy sent Brooke a fascinating letter which began, "Dear Sir, I'm fat and wear spectacles," and enclosed a crumpled photo so he had the part at once. His sing-song voice gives you the class difference between himself and all the other boys that we hear, especially both Ralph and Jack with their authoritative upper-class voices.
We needed meat.
You didn't ought to have let the fire go out.
Let's get into some of the more serious aspects of the meaning of the story as it's usually been interpreted. Here we see Simon, as he will do several times. Simon, one of the choir boys that is one of Ralph's own group that he controls, reaching out kindly fashion to Piggy. He's going to put Simon as well as Piggy in danger, that kind of behaviour.
Just you wait!
Holling's Lord of the Flies is usually described as an allegory, and Brooks' Lord of the Flies as an allegorical film. In an allegory, things and people stand for general qualities, both the practical use of things and the individual traits and characters, people, are seen as less important. And clearly this is largely so with Lord of the Flies, though in a moment I'll suggest it isn't the whole story or the whole meaning.
No, Ralph, don't, please. I'll bring them back.
Jack comes to stand for unreason and purposeful but frenzied violence, kind of fascism really. He comes to need the beast, which all have come to believe in, needs it to continue to exist. Allegorically, the beast is that shadowy enemy or threat that every evil regime needs to keep its subjects united and ready for violence. But it's also, as Simon hints, the beast in humans, some capacity for violence that waits in them. The beast is present, indeed, when the boys kill Simon, but it's not Simon, but the boys by that stage. We see Piggy left out of the rather brutal flesh-tearing feasting of the others until Simon, in a moment, comes to his rescue again. Ralph comes to stand for reason, for being sensible and not being silly, to quote his words in both novel and film, and also to stand for thoughtfulness and honesty. Ralph will be the only person who can actually name the killing of Simon later in the movie. For Ralph, the fire, which could signal a ship for rescue with the smoke it makes, becomes the heart and symbol of this sensible attitude to their being on the island. Piggy is intelligent and clearly sees where things are heading. In the novel, more than in the film, we even can see him as a kind of child, Tiresias, blind, dim-sighted anyway, clumsy, the only one of the children who isn't fit and active, but a seer. When Piggy mentions the prospect of death, you might all die on this island, he is, of course, unconsciously talking of his own death, and all the boys fall silent. They don't like to hear that, of course.
I don't know why. It all began well.
Golding groups Roger with Jack. We saw a little glimpse of Roger when the choir boys named themselves in the first assembly, and there was something a little withdrawn or even sinister about the way Roger named himself.
So now let's discuss who does what.
Roger, the kid who likes throwing stones, ends up acting as Jack's offsider and torturer. It's eventually Roger who heaves down the monstrous boulder that kills Piggy. But Brook perhaps makes a little bit less of Roger than Golding does in his novel.
It's my hunters who will protect you from it.
And Golding and Brook group Simon with Ralph and Piggy. Simon's very important in Brook's film. He's not obviously intelligent. You wouldn't use the word sensible of him. But he's kindly and tender and spontaneous. So the fact that he's killed as if he were the beast is really very ironical. And the more so because he's come to tell the others that the thing on the mountain is nothing other or more than the dead corpse of a downed pilot.
Telephone.
The nastiest act that will come in the film, the one that only Ralph of all the boys can even name, Piggy can't name it, Jack won't name it, is done to the kindest child, the one who could have removed the shadow of the beast from the boys by telling them the truth. You needn't see Simon as Christ, as some enthusiastic critics have in fact done, to see the killing of Simon as the killing of innocence or goodness. For all he's a bit cross-eyed in the movie, he suffers apparently from epilepsy in the novel. But in that scheme, in the allegorical scheme we're tracing, the outsider is marked in some way. Piggy fat and dim-sighted, Simon epileptic or cross-eyed. We see a little random bit of schoolboy bullying when Jack grabs Percival's shoulder so fiercely.
Comes out of the sea.
Percival, a little boy who can scarcely say his own name, here We'll see him at the very end of the movie with the rescuing naval officer, again unable to talk, just tentatively touching the stranger who's appeared.
My daddy said they hadn't found them.
So much for allegory as regards the characters. We can understand things in a similar light.
What do you call them? They make ink.
Jack's knife,
Hundreds of feet long.
emphasised by Brook early on, and the spear that replaces it as his weapon of choice. The conch, symbol of order and having rules. We watch it actually made into a symbol on the spot when Piggy and Ralph discover it. Piggy's glasses, his specs, sign of his disability but also his power to see in the sense of understand, then stolen by Jack and become firelighters for his feasts, leaving Piggy helpless. And the fire, another double symbol, because it's the sensible means of rescue, according to Ralph. It is also what fuels the hunter's wild feasts, and what Jack uses to burn out Ralph in the end and almost destroy the island. Though, of course, at that point, with more irony, fire also does what Ralph always said it should do. It makes smoke and summons rescue. So the allegorical pattern is clear, but not too simple, because some things have double meanings, like the fire. Events, actions are knotted with ironies, as we just saw with the killing of Simon. Simon who's sitting next to Ralph as the assemblies become more disturbed, more uncertain, signalled very often by Brook's extreme, almost blurred close-ups of the confused, less rational children. And this allegorical patterning, carefully plotted, so that, for instance, Jack gradually takes possession of the symbols, gets the glasses, uses the fire to his purposes for cooking and feasting, not signalling. This allegorical pattern gives the film, if you want to look for it, a clear pattern and meaning in that downwards spiralling. But that isn't the whole of it. These are schoolboys, as well as human beings with capital H, capital B. Lord of the Flies may have these larger meanings and point to worries about human beings and human nature that are traced to Golding's thoughts about 20th century history. You may use the allegory to say that left to themselves, humans will show they're savage and cruel, most of them at the core, when social order is stripped away, as is gradually happening on the island when they fail to set up their own social order among themselves, symbolised by the conch here. And social order is stripped away, as for instance it was in Nazi Germany when the gangsters were in power, encouraged the gangster in others.
Are they ghosts, Piggy?
As I was sketching earlier, critics have rightly seen Lord of the Flies as a response to such actions, the attempted extermination of the Jews of Europe, and what all that said about what all kinds of humans are capable of. Lord of the Flies is not only about humans in general in that grand perspective. It's also about a group of English schoolboys. Golding was a school teacher for some years, and he saw the rough, bullying, jeering side of kids. It's a movie about children. Peter Brook's film catches this very well. It does give us the cruelty and harshness, the terror and frenzy, for instance of the killing of Simon, screaming, chanting, drum beats, crazy flickering, lights the children transformed into something frightening and horrible. But it never, or at least it seldom, forgets that they are school kids. School kids fight, they squabble, they answer back with clever sarcasms. They bully, they pick on kids who are different. They boo and yell when someone's talking that they don't want to listen to, they shout that people down. They have rivalries and enmities. And we see all this too in the film. The film, which is, we remember, is using just ordinary kids, randomly almost selected, never loses sight of their kidness, their smallness in the jungle, their innocent-looking faces, which the face paint is having trouble disguising. Keep on getting glimpses of thin, naked backs with shoulder blades sticking out, kids' backs, even when their owners have savage face paint on and are wielding a pointed spear and talking about sticking up someone's arse. We do have menacing close-up shots, looming shots of Jack's gaunt face, say, which make us take their violence and power seriously. We have long shots of boys, small and almost lost in the jungle, or struggling along the beach. Children as a whole, as a group, are very English. In particular, both Ralph and Jack are very English. They have upper-class voices and intonations, ways of speaking that are intended to express certainty and command, which is something they've learnt from their elders. That's why Ralph is less effective in keeping the loyalty of the boys than Jack is when Ralph starts to worry and think aloud. Less politically effective, let's say. It's Jack who proclaims, "We're English and not savages, and the English are good at everything." It's true that he then becomes a savage, says bollocks to the rules. He makes himself and his tribe into savages, throws away the rules that he agreed with Ralph were needed. But the English didn't win and rule an empire. That empire they were obviously losing in the 50s and 60s, only by being like Ralph, sensible, rule-abiding, still clothed in the tropics, avoiding the dirty tricks he accuses Jack of committing, protecting the weak, such as Piggy, the dirty tricks that he mentions have been played on Piggy. The English also won and ruled their empire by being harsh and ruthless and certain, like Jack is. So they're English. They can stand for sides, different sides of the English in their imperial decline. In addition, there are individuals with characters and temperaments, as well as a group or a mob. We know what Ralph, Jack, Piggy and Simon are like as personalities. It's not simply that they stand for various aspects of human nature or even English culture. Being cast away doesn't simply bring out some basic savagery in humans. Jack helps it to appear in the others, and he has his motives as a person.
I suppose not.
If Ralph has become chief by talking sensibly and having the conch, Jack will get power some other way. What Ralph is partly determines what Jack is, what Jack does. And being cast away makes the individuals more themselves than, as we would guess, they were back in civilization. It gives them opportunities to be more themselves, for better or worse. Here they're discovering the rocky, thunderously surfy end of the island. They say they're going there because it's the only place they haven't been. And the beast might be there, and it of course will become the fort of the tribe and the scene of the later killings. So, the beast comes there. Individualised characters then. Jack, harsh and bullying, discovering in himself the talent for the fierce lordly gesture that wins popularity and then power. My hunters will protect you. I give you food. Jack, as I was saying, always stands, and he's the tallest boy anyway. He wants to convey power, decisiveness, scorn. He can't admit to uncertainty. He's sure that a leader should always look strong and never seem to hesitate. We see this even at the height of the violence and the height of Jack's power when Piggy is killed by Jack's henchman, Roger, though not as far as we can tell by his orders. There's a long moment during which Jack looks horrified, but that won't do, so he proceeds to organise the killing of Ralph. He's come to feel that violence is the only language and the only option, the only response. He's not entirely wrong. Part of the power of the film is that it shows how effective violence can be. Jack has been seeking this from the beginning, with his rather stagey gestures, sticking his knife in a tree and so forth. By the end, when he has bullied and coaxed most of the boys into joining him, he feels he knows this and he can act on it. We've cut from Jack and the others to an added passage by Golding, Piggy's astonishingly boring story of why Camberley got its name. He wants to insert a number of passages that remind us of letters and writing as part of the civilization that Ralph and Piggy in their ways are clinging to, and Jack is abandoning, of course. There's a shot later on of Ralph riding with a stick in the sand, for instance.
That's the true story of Camberley.
Ralph is thoughtful in the boys' assemblies, prepared to sit and think, and Jack likes to stand and decide. He's thinking. Golding says he's learning the pleasures and complexities of thinking. He's thinking, taking no care of how he looks or what he might convey by this, that he might be conveying lack of strength or confidence. It's, I guess, a sad aspect of the film that Ralph is developing as a person in his role as leader, even as he loses his power as leader and faces death at the end of the movie. He is intelligent, but also humorless and rather boring. See that Camberley story. This is real enough as an individual character in a child who's been often mocked. He lacks humour because he's got no feeling for how others respond. He's always been shut away from the crowd.
Not frightened, of course. All right, then who wants to go now?
There's a sad moment when Piggy, the bullied outsider, condemns the other outsider, Simon, who has several times, as we saw, helped him, and finds himself saying he asked for it after he's been killed. One outsider condemning the other. Piggy's lowest moment, and we're going to feel, I think, after that, not that he deserves his doom, but his doom will come to him. So much then for the interest of the individual characters, which, among other things, makes us feel antagonism or sympathy for the main players, as it were, and makes it painful when they misbehave or get killed. But no doubt it's the allegorical scheme culminating in the horrible killing of Simon as Beast that dominates our response to the movie, and the individual characters are a little secondary to that. What I'm going to do now is talk a little bit about some of the simple qualities of Brook's filmmaking and let you watch the climax of the movie for yourselves, largely. Brook was an enthusiastic filmmaker, even though he made his name and has kept his fame as a radical theatre director. He made a movie when he was 17 with some friends of Lawrence Stern's Sentimental Journey, starting, that is, with a text that he was putting onto movie as he's continued. So he's an enthusiastic filmmaker, and he loves to exploit the resources of film in a pretty direct, straightforward way most of the time. I'll just run through a few of these for you. Sound. Brook was a bit of a pioneer of artificial or electronic music, distorted sounds, repeated and re-echoed sounds, although we don't exactly get this in this movie. But what we do get, I think, is a daring use of silence, connected with the daring use of fade to black and darkness. The movie Brook makes us very aware when people stop talking, there's no sound, only the harsh sounds of the island, bird noises, insect noises, or of course the primitive sounds of pigs or children screaming. So that, in a way, daring readiness to just let us listen to whatever's sounding, even if there's very little, or to give us the silence of the boys when they don't know what to feel or say, is an aspect of the movie. Music, of course, some of it by famous harpsichord player and Baroque expert Raymond Lepard. The drums of war in the early stills become the drums of savagery as the boys invent their beating of sticks and their chanting. The ethereal chanting of a choir in those early stills, usually suggesting innocence and boys' purity, will recur after the killing of Simon as his corpse floats gently to and fro in the sea, with a terribly ironic effect, I think. The choir's chanting of Kyrie, Kyrie as they march along the beach to join the other boys, already in a martial formation with slightly martial music. Part of the Mass, asking for mercy from the Lord, recurring in an almost weirdly enthusiastic or jolly way over the final credits of the movie. The God of the island, which they've invented, the beast, is not a God of mercy, of course. What we hear but don't see, what's withheld from us? The pig being killed, we see only the corpse of the pig after it's dead. The hunters chasing Ralph, heard their ululating, as Golding calls it, their screams and signals to each other. The hunters chasing Ralph in the final scenes, heard but not seen. We only see them after the slow pan up the rescuing naval officer's body.
That's a good idea.
He's very good on that. Withholding, he's not really, I think, trying for horror in the movie. He's trying for kind of shocking terror at times.
What else is
The glimpses of the beast, really an airman. First, that of Sam and Eric, then that of the three, Ralph, Jack and Roger, a more frightening glimpse. Then Simon's glimpse that we're going to get to. He sees it's just a dead man. I don't think any of those glimpses is trying to play with the horror of the corpse up there that's become a fearful god, as you might do in a horror movie. Giving us a little more than what the boys see, but not much more. Likewise, interestingly, I think we're more detached from Ralph in the final hunt. We get less sense of him thinking and actually planning some tactics as to how he's going to get away than we get in the novel. So it's a calculated movie. It's a movie that works with contrast, silence, sound, sitting down, standing up, naked clothes, as I'll talk about in a moment. It's a calculated movie, but for all its dreadful topic, a movie that tries to be detached and restrained and not go too full on for, say, horror. Clothes, here we see two boys discovering, as it is now, the delights of face paint. It's still like kids playing and grinning at each other. There's an intricate pattern of being clothed and naked in the movie. What they leave on or take off, how much care they take of their clothes. Piggy will see very late in the movie, when things have gone badly wrong, still pulling up his socks. We saw Piggy awkwardly undressing early on when Ralph happily went for a swim. Simon, now without his shirt on, but later on we see him, his white shirt very luminous in the moonlight. Our clothes get ripped, they start to look just messy and a bit ineffectual with. It's the case with Ralph, who keeps his shirt on long after it's ripped. Jack It's all here, starting to hunt intercut with Simon going up the mountain to see what's really there. Jack was the first to strip off. In many of the early scenes he looks more at ease with his sun-panned body than Ralph in his ragged shirt. But in effect, and this is starting this part of the movie, he clothes himself all over again, painting his face, firstly, his chest then devising a kind of mask or headdress, carrying his spear like a sceptre, becoming a primitive chief or ruler. By the end, as the boys have passed from being clothed to being semi-naked and back to being clothed in face paint, chest paint, by the end, nakedness is vulnerability, as in the shots of Jack having one of his tribe whipped. We see Simon with his very vivid white shirt on, exploring the bush. He's going to confront
Right up the arse.
the Lord of the Flies. Clothed, naked, semi-clothed then. Silent, noisy. Close up and long shot. Long shot reminds us from time to time how small the boys are in the perspective of the island. Often seen in a bedraggled or uncertain procession along the beach, and when they're seen on the beach, they seem very much on the rim of the island as if they haven't really got into it at all. Or they're seen singly or in small groups in the midst of the thick, sunstruck palms and creepers, again seeming quite small.
This head is
Close
for
up,
the beast.
sometimes so close as to be out of focus and hard to see. This can convey tension or fear or menace. Close to the boys, you can more easily feel their feelings, fear or hostility, or power. Just saw juxtaposing of Jack, looking more menacing and powerful now, and the pig's head that's the sacrifice to the beast of the island. And soon we'll see Simon's face and that of the pig. Simon facing the Lord of the Flies. Beelzebub in the Bible is the Lord of the Flies. It's Beelzebub, a kind of devil that they've made here. Dim, dim, in the background, the boys still chanting Kyrie. So we look at the heat-struck forest. By daylight, the scene is always hot, crowded, alien to the boys. They always have to force their way through the jungle. By night, thundery and flickery. Brook again achieves this, another strong contrast. He does this partly by choosing to film in black and white, which also, of course, eliminates a lot of the tropical island holiday beauty of the island. Simon, not at all a glamorised figure, slightly skinny and bent, confronting the Lord of the Flies. In the novel, he has a kind of epileptic fugue in which the beast actually talks to him with extreme, brutal scorn, tells him he's nothing and the boys are nothing and he might as well go away. Brook does the confrontation purely with very strong close-ups, extreme close-ups. Gives you the flies, close-up of the flies, leaves you to guess for yourself that this is the Lord of the Flies. Though, of course, behind it is the imagined beast.
Looks like we're going to have a lot of rain, all right.
What about the fire? Hey, come back!
Jack's tribe raiding the remaining supporters of Ralph, doing it to steal fire. It's a little bit mob-like, but it's still like kids competing with each other. Not fully mob-like. It's going to develop in a little while as Feast with the Stolen Fire gets underway. Good shots of the rock, the fort at the end of the island where the nastiest things are going to happen. Intercut with Simon going back up the mountain to follow up whatever he's been thinking when he saw the pig's head. We're not told what he's been thinking, we just get the Artodian images instead. The boys enjoying their dancing, working their way up. A striking shot of Jack now in his full regalia, something between play dressing up and something frighteningly primitive still. But certainly the remaining supporters of Ralph, a bit pathetic and bedraggled compared to the confident tribesmen.
Take him some food.
Is Jack still a bit of a play actor, playing at being a leader? Or has he become the real thing? I don't think the film quite commits itself. But he's got the food to dispense. Jack has a leadership group, and then the supporters working themselves up into a fun frenzy down below. While Ralph and Piggy are in the background and to one side and unprivileged really.
Who'll join my tribe?
As you know from the BBC documentary, some tribal things happened among the child actors, shut up on the island for a month, treated in a fairly Spartan and intense fashion by Brook, and things that they weren't going to think about very well later on, because he was encouraging them to improvise. He managed to get them to improvise as well as stick to Golding's script, or the script he was getting from Golding's novel.
Who'll join my tribe?
This is Jack's final political triumph when everybody, almost everybody, will join his tribe. And Brook has delayed it to this point. He's made it happen later in the film so as to get it as close as possible to the worst frenzy, the killing of Simon. Simon, very small and deliberate, walking into the frame from a distance here. Startling things with framing to the left or right or wherever, done in the Lee film later on. The beast scene in a still shot, close up, just bedraggled, shrunken corpse, nothing horrifying. Simon doesn't run screaming. He retreats backwards, almost as if the film's been wound backwards. The fire, Golding says, it can become animate, like a live thing, burning up the bush. And Brook gets a little of that here. As it seethes and they make torches, play on the beach. Sea's wild here. It'll be sort of peaceful a little bit later on, after the killing of Simon. Now it's Jack who initiates the kill the pig chant amid the frenzy of the other kids, who are perhaps some of them just sort of having fun and making noise. And perhaps Ralph was part of it. Still screaming like kids in a way that if you scream you scare yourself. Work yourself up. Brook was very attracted to Theories that ritual is extremely important to humans and the way they make cultures. This is a ritual, of course, somewhat out of hand. Simon, unusually in a hurry, flickering through the bush. It's the firelight partly that makes him flicker. Simon, who's been so extraordinarily calm, is a terrified child at the moment of his death. You know those boyish backs of the kids. They're only little and they're killing someone. Now we get that ethereal choir that we heard earlier on, expressive of innocence and purity. Simon's body in the sea. These images of the starlight on the water and the soundtrack of the singing are how Brook finds an equivalent for the passage in Golding, where the tide comes in and washes Simon's body. Great wave of the tide moved further along the island and the water lifted. Softly, surrounded by a fringe of inquisitive, bright creatures, silver shape beneath the steadfast constellations, Simon's dead body moved out towards the open sea. It's the burial at sea that Golding gives Simon at the end of chapter 9 of the novel. After the height of nakedness and savagery, we have Piggy carefully pulling up his socks, fully clothed, not much skin exposed. This, of course, is the place of assembly. That twisty palm trunk marks it. Deserted now. Golding has a passage about how the kids keep falling off the trunk at the back and everybody laughs too much and they can't have a serious assembly. Now it's all over.
Piggy, you the only one left?
There are some little uns.
They don't count. No big uns?
Oh, Sam and Eric. They're collecting wood.
Nobody else?
Not that I know of.
Ralph's still got his shirt on, but not much of it.
Piggy. Piggy? Huh? That was murder.
You stop it. What good are you doing talking like that? It was dark. There was that bloody dance. There was thunder and lightning and rain. We were scared. It wasn't what you said.
You can't say the word.
Piggy! It was an accident.
Ralph feels deserted even by Piggy at this point.
He was batty. He asked for it. It was an accident.
Does he really feel he asked for it? Or does he say that to
God,
console Ralph? We don't know really.
Ow! Ow! Take him away!
Kids get beaten on the backside in serious circumstances at boarding school, as I can recall myself. But the main image here is of vulnerable childish nakedness. And of course, more violence.
Then we'll leave another head for the beast.
Jack against the rocks in full regalia, with his spear like a sceptre.
We'll stay and defend the gate. The beast may try and come in.
Jack speaking slowly with calculated pauses, as a
Remember
ruler.
how he crawled? He came disguised. The beast may try and come, even though we gave him the head of our kill to eat. So watch and be careful.
Jack offers the boys a kind of myth, a story they can live with.
Didn't we?
No. How could we kill it?
He told us the beast was disguised.
Tomorrow, when we get meat, we'll have a feast. Chief? Yes, Bill? What'll we use to light fire? We'll get fire from the others.
We've got to get out of this.
We're going to try and
Get
pinch
rescued.
Piggy's glasses to use them to make fire.
I mean it.
In the novel, there's a real fight
Get out
between
of there soon.
the kids in the confused dark.
Round the bend.
Although, unfortunately, Ralph finds it later on that he's been bashing one of his own supporters in the dark. In the movie, it'll be much more rough and sudden, as often
Have you written a letter
Book.
to your auntie lately?
makes things
I don't
even
know
more
where she is
confused than they
now,
were in the novel.
And I haven't got an envelope or
The
a
kids
stamp.
even less in control than they were in the novel.
And there isn't a pillar box or a
In the novel,
postman.
that incident's from Ralph's point of view, and we see him thinking a little. Here, Mrs. Brooks' introduction reminds us a little bit of letters, pillar boxes, civilization.
Don't make a sound. Get you, Piggy.
On any occasion to prepare himself, Piggy puts on his glasses, which of course he's now about to lose.
We've come to get you.
It's a messy kids' fight, isn't it? Perhaps a touch of relief from the horrible violence earlier on. Back to being rival gangs of kids, perhaps.
Ta-da! He just slipped those funny little... You did!
So, what will the others do about the loss of Piggy's glasses? First, we get one of those bedraggled, spread out processions along the edge of the island, the beach. Carrying the conch this time, the talisman. The music lays over the top of whatever noise Ralph is managing to make. It's a contrast with the first time he managed to blow it, when it boomed all over the island and really did summon the scattered castaways. Naked little ones, including Sam and Eric as well.
I just take the conch to say this. I can't see without my glasses, and I got to get them back. What are we going to do?
Just a glimpse of the assembly there. What are we going to do? We don't need to find out what they decided. Rational decisions are not the way things are happening anymore.
Hey! Who goes there? Stop being silly! You can see who I am!
Stop Being Silly is a revival of Ralph's common sense and practicality. Good shots of the ugly, twisted rocks.
I'm calling an assembly!
Ralph's still trying to protect Piggy.
What do you want? Go away, Ralph. You keep to your end. This is my end and my tribe. You have to leave me alone.
You took Piggy's specs. You've got to give them back.
Got to? Who says?
I say. That was a dirty trick. We would have given you fire if you asked for it, but you didn't. You came sneaking up like a thief.
Say that again.
Thief!
Thief! Who's a thief?
You are. Ralph! Remember what we came for? The fire!
The kids fight. We're going to exchange more insults.
Ship out there, or a plane!
Grab him! Tie him up!
Jack knows now the best way to respond to argument is by violent action. Kidnap Sam and Eric. Beast and a swine. It's much stronger language than Ralph used earlier. We talked about the bloody fire, and we know that beast and swine have other meanings on the island, bigger meanings. The fight between Ralph and Jack in the novel is more serious and more dangerous. This is kids wrestling. The kids improvise various siren noises.
Which is it better to be? A pack of painted savages like you are? Or sensible like Ralph is? Which is better? To have rules and agree, or to hunt and kill?
Brooke frames the issue in Piggy's last words. It's a great rock, isn't it? The wonderful, ugly twistedness of it. What does Jack feel? Is he horrified? What do the others feel? They're behind their masks. What Ralph feels is that he's got to go. Many shots of the looming rock, shots from below of guards or kids. We get a bit of a sense of menace to the last part of the movie. Ralph's move here is to peel the Sam and Eric. The last civilised move, in a way. Although we can also try and find out what's going on.
When they find me, what are they going to do? Roger sharpened his stick at both ends. They're going to hurt you tomorrow. We've got to give signals like this. Only louder, of course.
Roger has developed from stone thrower, idle stone thrower, to the kind of head torturer and sadist of the group.
Three of us would have a better chance. Quick, Ralph. I'll be in that thicket there. They won't think to look so close. Who is it? Who's there? Attention! Eric, it's Roger.
Ralph hides in the nearby thicket. More calculated plan in the novel, actually, than in the movie. In the movie, it mainly means that he's going to have a lot of island to flee around in confused fashion when they start hunting him.
Got piggy specs. I'll start a fire. Must be in here. Somewhere. You go round that way.
This time they're starting a fire to burn Ralph out. Violent, but not perhaps very wise if they burn down the island.
Roger, come here. Got the stick.
Blurry close-ups here.
I told you, he's dangerous.
This begins quite a long sequence of confused, clumsy flight by Ralph, whose rags are now kind of impediment to him as much as anything else. Plenty of smoke, and in the terror of the chase of Ralph will forget that the island must be giving up a pall of smoke some miles high by the time it comes to an end. We do get the sense that Ralph is trying to think, trying to calculate, not just completely panicking at this point. Either we hear the ominous chanting or rather harsh bird and insect noises of the island, very much brought up and loud. The hunter's going to hem Ralph onto the beach, which of course is where Simon and Piggy were killed on the edge of the island. Ralph obviously become completely desperate by now. And we know, though we can't see them, that the hunters can see him and are close behind. Silence and a very slow pan upwards. In the novel, we'll have some words from the naval officer, trying to be jolly, trying to see them as just kids. Brook very wisely eliminates that. And we get a man who's puzzled if not horrified. This is little Percival. You could scarcely say his name before. In the scene in the assembly. Can't get out his name now. Jack, perhaps looking a bit puzzled, chastened. Music's an echo or variation of the marching music of the choir along the beach earlier on. And final shots of the traumatised Ralph. Brook wants to give us this face rather than any sense that they've been rescued and they can be happy. Kyrie, sang again. What a kind of lilting spirit, isn't it? Strange, bittersweet effect, I think. As I remarked earlier, there's been plenty more castaway stories, plenty of violence, revelation of dark pasts in the case of Lost, plenty of social breakdown in later versions, and no doubt there'll be more still on paper or on film. This is one of the most concentrated and impressive, isn't it? Especially in its use of children. I hope you enjoyed the movie and also my comments, and I hope you can get to read and view some of the other examples I mentioned.